Hey, how's it going? It's your man, Christopher the Rupel, and if you're hearing this, you're probably like, oh, wait, why is there a weird intro here? Well, before Drunken Book Club became what it is now, where we get drunk, talk about kids' books, and other such things, the original Drunken Book Club was this style and format, where I used to read, almost 5 books, 3 to 5 books in a month, and I wanted to talk about them, but I was very... shy. Didn't think I was smart enough to actually talk about these books without getting drunk first and having a jovial time about it. So this is where this incarnation of Drunken Book Club is. There's about a couple handful of these episodes. I think they're fun. I did not want to get rid of them when we became Drunken Book Club, originally speaking of which. So here it is. Enjoy, and these are the new socials, DBC_pod for the Twitter account, and our new Patreon is patreon.com/drunkenbookclub. Think about supporting us. It may improve further stuff, yada yada yada. Okay, bye. Hello and welcome back to Drunken Book Club Volume 6. I'm not drunk this time around. What happened was the one that I recorded before didn't come out the way I wanted it to, and when I've re-recorded it out of anger and frustration while being drunk, I've noticed it does not come out as good as I like it, so I'm going to try a not so drunken book club, but I'm still going to call it Drunken Book Club because that's just what it's called, you know? I'm recording this actually very early in the morning, so that's kind of fun. I'm actually drinking a coffee at the moment. If you want to know how I like my coffee, it's 1 thing of fake sugar. They do the yellow ones. I use Flake Splenda because I'm cheap and I get the generic kind. And I do about 10 ounces on the Keurig with whatever we've got that has caffeine. And I do about almost a half and half. I do about mostly coffee and then a little, the rest of it filled to the top with almond milk or whatever sweet milk we have. We're gonna try out wheat milk soon, so hopefully that one goes good with my coffee. I know me and Sam are very hippy dippy. Oh, them hippie types, we care about nature. And, I'm not a big fan of milk. That's what I'd say. I kind of like almond milk and that stuff. I like sweet milk. So, it works out fine for me, because it's kind of what I prefer. Ooh, someone's getting an amber lamps. I wonder if that's picking up. I just assume certain sounds get picked up. Also, I'm going to apologize if you hear, or anything like that. I am recording this on a Friday morning, which means that the groundskeepers at my apartment complex work on Friday mornings, so that is my big warning for that. And also a lot of tweeting birds, because this side of the building is very shady, and the birds like the shade early in the morning so they can roost and have a good time. So, apologies up front on this not-so-drunken book club. So, on this episode, I read, quote-unquote, read 5 books. I read 2 of the Legend of Drizzt books, Homeland and Exile. I read Legion by William Peter Blatty. Oh yeah, those are by R.A. Salvatore. I read the Fear Street Cheerleaders, The First Evil by R.L. Stine. And I wrap up the whole thing with Springfield Confidential by Mike Reese and Matthew Kickstein. Let's get started. Let's get started with the Legend of Drizzt books, because I didn't read those back to back, but I'm gonna just talk about them in kind of just a morph into one thing, just to make it easier on myself, and not to be like, all right, we're gonna take a break and talk about Legion and another book, and then we're gonna finish up with this one. No. We're going to talk about Legend of Drizzt first. So, what is Legend of Drizzt? For people who aren't familiar with D&D, Drizzt is a drow elf. What's a drow elf, you may be asking, if you're not familiar with D&D yet again. A drow elf is a dark elf. They live underground, and they're very evil creatures. Literally, if you think of an elf from, Lord of the Rings, dye them black and bleach their hair, and make them evil. That's a drow elf. That's the nicest way of putting it. But Drizzt is different. Drizzt is actually if I'm not mistaken, I think he's chaotic good. Don't quote me on that. I don't know his true alignment. I'm pretty sure he's chaotic good. But the Legend of Drizzt follows the character of Drizzt. Pretty much, it's his origin story, because he actually started out in another book, The Crystal Shards, I think is what it's called, by R.A. Salvatore. And people were like, oh, we love Drizzt, we want more Drizzt, Drizzt. Drizzt mania just, like, took over America in the late 80s, early 90s. Like, it made no sense to me. Like, what? Drizzt? Drizzt. I don't know. How do you pronounce his name? Okay, you spell Drizzt with Drizzt. So is it Drizzt or Drizzt? Drizzt? Legend of Drizzt. You know, saying these weird-ass fantasy names makes you just appreciate half-orcs and goblins and stuff, because they're just direct, you know, good manly names. I'd say, like, Vorka, or Kagak, or Susie Sue and the Banshees. Pause for laughter. But no, Drizzt is a very interesting, The Legend of Drizzt, at least. It's a very interesting story. The first book, Homeland, literally goes into very in-depthly about the Homeland, one of the many cities of the Underdark. Don't know what the Underdark is. It's literally underground, very deep underground. There's no light, and mostly evil creatures live down here. Huh. I think they changed this later on, right? Yeah, the Sphur Nebulae aren't that bad. The deep gnomes, as we see in Exile. But I digress until then. So we really do see in perspective what the Drow Society is. It's a lot of backstabbing. It's a lot of, you know, we gotta be on top, but you also have to be very stealthy about it, because you can't just go up to somebody on the streets and just stab them and be like, I have your house now. I'm now in charge of your house. No, you have to, if you're gonna take out a whole family of royals, you have to do it stealthily. Somewhat stealthily. Like, you can have people know who it is, but you have to make sure you kill all the nobles, and you have to, you know, do it without people, you know, without losing, pretty much. It's an interesting concept. It's very, I don't know. It's a nice way so you don't get backstabbed, I guess, in the future. Which, it turns pretty much. This book opens up with Drizzt's family, the Duerdens. There's no Z in there. Attacking another house so they can become the 9th house of. Or actually, they're taken down because they take down another house because they lose favor with Lilith, the Spider Demon Queen. Man, this sounds fucking crazy when I say it out loud. And it's pretty much going through his life of, like, literally he was going to be sacrificed at birth, but because his oldest brother got killed by his the middle child, and then he became the eldest boy of the house. So Drizzt didn't get sacrificed. He gets to live his life of pretty much being let's just stay up front. He's kind of a Gary Stu or Mary Sue, whatever you like to call them. I like to say Gary Stu when it's a boy and Mary Sue for girls. But yeah, Drizzt is a Mary Sue that you can't help but really like, though. Because you know what? Everyone else in these books are fucking dickheads. Even Zach Nefian, his father and role model, who he doesn't know is his father until way later on. You know, a bunch of drama fun stuff. Like, everyone's kind of an asshole, but it works out really well. To, like, the Gary Stu that is Drizzt in the first book. He definitely does change a lot in this next one. But how is he Gary Stu? Well, I mean, I guess, you know, I need to look up what a Mary Sue is real quick to make sure that I'm getting that right. So, what a Mary Sue is, for those who don't know, it's a term used to describe a fictional character, usually female, which, fuck off with that crap. It's a very sexist term, I know, but I usually only use it for males, mostly nowadays, who is seen as too perfect and almost boring for lack of flaws. Originally written as an idolized version of an author in fanfiction. I think Drizzt kind of counts as a Gary Stu, because he doesn't really have that many flaws. Like, you know what his biggest flaw is? He's freaking... Oh god, why am I forgetting the word all of a sudden? He is super ignorant. That's his biggest flaw, is that he's very ignorant, especially in the first book. Just how ignorant he is. Of just like, he thinks that Zaknafein, his father figure, enjoys killing drows because he likes killing for no other reason. Even though it's like, Drizzt finds out he doesn't like killing either, especially, good. Well, he doesn't like killing without necessary means, because he killed hook horrors on like a mission with his during his school years, and they were supposed to kill these hook horrors because they're about to kill a noble-born child. But then they find out that the child was not noble-born; it was just a random kid off the street, pretty much. And he's like, "We killed these hook horrors for nothing, and this kid was sacrificed for nothing." And that's kind of his first kind of step of like, I fucking hate these people, but I don't know where else to go, because when you live in such a small little area, it's a very, you can almost say it's very symbolic of like people from small towns, where it's like you're stuck there even with the hateful people who might be living there, whose opinions you don't really agree with. You can really make that metaphor, between the two. Personally, I can. I live in Tucson. Great state. Great state. Great city. Not so great state. Take that, Arizona. Take that. In all fairness, like, what's it called? It's hard to not think of him as a Gary Stu, though, throughout these books. Because, like, he's literally perfect. Like, okay, he'll get hurt every now and then, but he'll still keep fighting. And it's just, like, it's kind of ridiculous. But if the books weren't written so well, I would probably have put it down and been like, I'm really tired of this shit. And maybe it's because, I like fantasy books, especially when they're, like, just badass, Like, I'm worried with I'm currently writing a fantasy book. I'm really worried that my character is going to come off as a Gary Stu, but I don't think he will. I'm hoping that I'm able to work it so he doesn't seem that way. But he's still gonna end up a Gary fucking Stu. Like, no matter what, everyone's gonna call your character a Gary Stu or a Mary Sue, even if they're, like, clearly flawed, I was about to say. Like, I mean, you look at fucking movies like Harley Quinn and fucking Captain Marvel, and they'll always be like, oh, Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue. But I'm getting way off topic with Mary Sueing. I need to actually have a girl on here, Sam, probably, to talk about the controversies of Mary Sues and stuff like that. I don't like using the term, except for boys. Because you know what? Take men down a peg. There, I said it. So, in the end, I don't really want to spoil anything. Just, I do recommend these if you're interested in fantasy novels. I don't know. Like, I do and I don't recommend this. Like how I was saying, if you don't mind the Gary Stu-ness, I recommend it. Because the world is very well constructed, and makes you just want to keep reading and learn more about Drow society. And hell, even the side characters of his 4 siblings and his mother, Matron Malice. I wonder who the bad guy is. Is it Matron Malice? Is it the character whose name means bad? Oh, I don't know, Davey. Ooh. Did people just not know what malice meant back in, like, 1989 or 1990 when these books were written? What? Is it bad of me to make fun of certain names? I shouldn't talk. I literally am, like, I can't talk when it comes to name structures and stuff. I make stupid names, too, that are right on the nose. And I only hope people don't know what the word is until, like, I tell them to be like, alright, look it up, and you'll be like, it's that. Why am I so distracted? 'Cause I'm on coffee and biscuits. So the next one, Exile. Gosh, I don't really want to get into it because, well, I guess if you look at the title, it pretty much gives away what happens at the end of the book. He's exiled in the first one. Quote unquote, he's exiled. He's not really exiled. I'll just say that up front. But I don't want to ruin anything. And it's pretty much him living in the Underdark, slowly losing his mind, and even considering going back to Menzo Baranzan, even though he knows he won't be welcome back and shit like that. And it's his adventures of trying to keep his sanity, eventually getting that sanity back, and then not wanting to revert back to this hunter, this killer. And it's a very interesting book. I'll say it up front. It's a book that uses memories as a good oh my god, why am I forgetting? I'm forgetting all my literary terms. This is why I shouldn't drink coffee until I write my notes down. I have a million and one ideas and things I want to talk about, but I can't. Yeah, you really shouldn't talk about these books unless other people have read them. So, I am going to read the next one next month. I might just be like, yay or nay it, and see if it's worth reading. And I'm just going to say yay or nay with finishing the second book. Yay. Go ahead and just read the first two. If you're interested in fantasy books that aren't J.R.R. Tolkien and want something that's D&D related, I recommend these ones. Check them out. Check them out. Check them out. Check them out. Alright, so the next book I read was Fear Street Cheerleaders, The First Evil by R.L. Stine. I didn't finish this one. I made it to page 93, chapter 14. I was getting sick and tired of all the characters. They're either insufferable bitches or boring as all hell. I wanted to like it, but it was just too boring to finish. It really goes to show that, like, after reading something as good as The Pigman and trying to go back and reading another young adult fiction book by R.L. Stine just makes you really put it into perspective how kind of shitty R.L. Stine's writing is compared to other young adult writers. Like, it's crazy when when I put it in perspective, you know, just how bland and boring they are. Like, you can make them likable and relatable, you know, and then, you know, that's the thing. Like, this is something that has always bugged me with, like, horror franchises, mostly slashers, and, like, especially young adult books, and just the writing of R.L. Stine, is that a lot of people don't seem to get, you should make these characters likable, so when they get killed, you actually feel an emotional, like, you want to feel an emotional attachment before they die, so you can feel like, oh my god, they just died. You feel something for the book, you know? I feel like not J.R.R. Tolkien, oh my god, it's the other one with letters and a name. George R.R. Martin. Different R's. Different first name. Still has two R's. But George R.R. Martin, how he will kill off characters, like, without a fucking blink of an eye. And these are characters, whether you like them or not, they'll end up being killed. That's something I've really enjoyed. Hell, even Drizzt did that really well in, like, two of the in both the books. There's two super impactful deaths in each. There's an impactful death in each book. Oh, except for the second one. There's a killing spree that happens in that one. But that one I will not talk about, because you know what? You should read it yourself, because it's pretty damn good. But no, like, R.L. Stine writes like a fucking slasher writer of, like, I'm going to make these characters as unlikable as possible, so when they die, you don't care. And it's like, fuck off. I want to enjoy the book still, or enjoy the movie. That goes to slashers. You know, it works in the medium of movies, because a slasher movie is, like, only an hour and a half of your time. It's not a waste of it's not a whole waste of, like, an afternoon. It's literally hour 30 minutes. I really hated these characters, but you know what? I'm glad they died, because you know what? They were insufferable, and I'm glad the virgin or whatever survived, and I'm happy to see that the slasher got to live again and see another day. Yada yada yada. You know, twist endings, whatever. But when it comes to reading a book with that kind of, like, mindset, you have to think for a second. Why am I going to continue reading if I don't like these characters? I'm going to be spending, you know, usually, an R.L. Stine book usually takes me about 3 hours to finish if I'm really gearing with it, like, just sitting there and just reading it. I was about to say, I mean, I made it page 93 within, like, an hour and a half, so, you know, take it as you will. That's not even, like, the halfway point. It's, like, a little bit further than the halfway point. But, like, I was just like, I don't know. I don't want to continue wasting my time reading this if I don't like the characters. Like, yeah, sure, they'll die, but I'm like, should I really be rooting for teenage girl death if they're not really, like, if I don't get to see how they die? I'm going to just clarify that. I don't mind killings in movies and stuff. I love violence. I'd be a fucking liar, but in the fictional sense. But, like, when you're giving me kind of a realistic setting and just giving me deaths that aren't Like, I didn't even get to the death scenes. That's how boring this book was. Like, 93 pages in, we get one death, and the death isn't even that good, and it's not even a real death. You know? That's how fucking shitty it is. Ugh, I am going way too long into this one. Into a shitty fucking book. But, like, we need to... Oh, God, I don't... Like, that's kind of how I felt with the last R.L. Stine book I read, The Beach House. Where it's like, I didn't, like, I was pissy, but I finished it because I at least kind of liked the characters. You know, they didn't seem as boring as they are in this one. This one, they're just straight up dull ass shit. This is Dole Whip right here. Achi machi. I crack myself up. No, I don't. But no, this is just bland, boring. Like, at the top of my head, I think I can name one character. Bobby. That's the only character's name I remember. I think that's the girl who becomes the main character in the story. But I'm not even 100% sure about that even. Because, like, that could be wrong for all I know. I don't know. I don't remember. You know, remember. Do I wish I had read it? A little. I kind of wish I finished it to see how the death scenes were. I've heard they get kind of, like, range from pretty brutal to whatever. Like, I think a girl literally gets scalded in a showers and dies, and that's, like, it's kind of a brutal death scene right there. That's the only one I think I know of at the top of my head. But it's, like, it's just teenage drama without the payoff. You know, there's no payoff. You know, I mean, at least 93 pages in, there's no payoff. Like, I think I've said this before in our other R.L. Stine books, like, or not on the podcast, but I've said to myself, like, when it comes down to it, it needs to focus on, like, a singular main character who's your cipher, who's the person you put yourself into. I don't think I'm using that term right still, but no, it's that character you want to put yourself into, because they're, you know, they're kind of bland, they're kind of simple, but at the same time, you want to put a world where there's characters who are interesting, that make you go, oh, neat, and stuff like that. You know, you want to be like, I like this character, I want to be like this character, but at the same time, I kind of wish I was friends with these other people, though. That's where I kind of see it. It's like, I want to see more, and like, that's the problem with this one. There's no one interesting. They're all sassy little bitches who hate each other. God, and this is the only book I have with me on the couch that I read. I'm actually going to sit down and read one of the next books, which is related to... Rupel's Rupees for next month, possibly. It really depends if one of my friends shout out to... I don't know if he wants me to say his name or refer to him as his name on Twitter. I don't know anymore with certain people. I'll ask him next time. But we're thinking about doing an episode on a specific video game series for Rupel's Rupees. I'm actually planning on doing 2 next month, so stay tuned for that. Be excited. Be very excited. But yeah. Cheerleaders. Pass. So, the next book I read was Legion by William Peter Blatty. Which, it's kind of funny when I think about it, because wasn't The Exorcist one of the first books I actually read on Drunken Book Club? I'm pretty positive it was the first. It was one of the first ones, because I remember I read that and Uzumaki and a couple others that I wanted to. I think I read Congo as well in there. I don't remember. I'm looking at the shelf and I'm like, I don't remember. But yeah, I think Exorcist was one of the first episodes of Drunken Book Club, and it's a sequel to it's a sequel that's like I don't know how to explain it, because it's like you don't go back with Reagan in them. You're actually going with the Detective Kinderman from the first book, which I think I talked about very briefly. Of like, I really enjoyed the detective scenes, but his talking went on and on and on, and he was just a funny character. And, you know, it's kind of a continuation from his life, like, I think 15 years later is what they say, 10 or 15 years later. In Legion, it's less of a horror novel and more of a detective novel. There are some scary moments, but it's more of a detective book. We follow Kinderman as he tries to solve the mystery of the New Gemini killings, which were not referenced in the first book, but they are referenced to, or they tell you about them in this one, and pretty much it's the Zodiac killer. That's what the Gemini is kind of referencing. It's pretty obvious. It's making reference to that, even though I don't think, did the Zodiac ever leave like Zodiac signs? I need to read more about the Zodiac killer. I don't know shit about them. It's them, because we don't know if it's a boy or man or woman. A lot of people think it's a guy, but it could be a woman. We don't know. See? You don't know. You're not the fucking detective on this shit. Fuck you, motherfucker. But no, I might try to find a Zodiac Killer book. I'm kind of interested now that, after reading Gemini Killer, or this is Gemini Killer, Legion. But no, all in all, it's a good book, but it leaves you kind of wanting it to be scarier. Because I remember reading Exorcist and being so unsettled and so like, holy shit. You know, this is more of a thriller than anything. Because like certain moments you're just like, you're reading about like how someone might be getting killed soon. And you're just like, oh shit, gotta keep reading. Oh, whoa. And like someone who's actually going through like a spiritual kind of guidance thing of like talking with spirits and crap. And it's like really weird. Like, I'm glad they cut that out of the movie. There's a lot of chapters that I'm glad they cut from the movie. But, you know what? This one's better left to people who are super fans of The Exorcist and kind of want an actual, like, and like, you know, they watched the movie, they read the first book, and they're kind of like, where do I go from here? You know, it's like, go to read The Legion or watch Exorcist 3. It's kind of up to you, you know? It really is up to you, kind of thing. But, in all honesty, I'd say watch the movie. Like, this is one of those few times where I'd say, if you really want to watch something, I really recommend Legion, just because it's a real, or Exorcist 3 Legion, like it's a very good standalone movie that like it does work well if you have seen the first one, because you then are like, oh shit, that's, you know, so and so from the first one, you know. Because Kinderman never appeared in the first movie, if I remember correctly. Like, I think I have to go back and actually watch it. It's been years since I watched The Exorcist. I watched that back in like 2010. That was the last time I watched The Exorcist. I watched it on the big screen. Holy shit, was it scary. But I digress. I think I said that the last time. But yeah, like Legion, I actually watched it literally when I was reading this book. I watched the movie because I was like, I'm kind of interested to see how they adapted it, because it's like, how did they get funding for this, in my opinion? Because like, this is not your typical Exorcist movie. In the book, there's no exorcisms. In the movie, there is an exorcism performed. So that's kind of one of the weird things. You know, I mean, obviously it's not called Exorcist 2 Legion, for what it's worth. It's just if anything, it's more of a spiritual successor to Exorcist more than a sequel to The Exorcist. Because it's literally just continuing off for the characters. For certain characters, you know, even the demon from the first book is technically back in this one. You know, because it's Legion, not Pazuzu. The movie used Pazuzu. Did the book use Pazuzu? I don't remember. I'll have to go back and either re-listen or just skim through the book, you know. But no, I recommend Legion if you're really into, especially if you're into detective novels or mysteries. Because, like, I mean, pretty fast you find out who it is, kind of thing. But, like, it doesn't leave you wanting to solve the mystery as much as it just, you want to see how they're going to succeed in the end. Because, like, how it ends, it's super abrupt, but it's satisfying. Like, it really makes you go, really? That's how it ended? But at the same time, you're like, I don't see it ending any other way. You know? Like, it makes sense for the book how it ended versus how the movie ended. Because I really want to see if they made a director's cut of Legion, or Exorcist 3 Legion. Because, like, I feel like if there was a director's cut, it obviously would have ended in a different way. And then also probably kept in some plot points from the book. Because, like, they drop big plot points. Like, the whole Gemini killer thing is, like, is a footnote in the movie. But that's a main aspect of this book. Like, you know, compare and contrast. Whee! Like, I don't know. Like, the horror fan in me loves the ending to Legion, or in Exorcist 3 Legion, but the literary subtlety of Legion, the book, the literary side of me, you know, I guess the literary critic, I barely call myself a critic. I'm not a critic. I'm just someone who likes to talk about books. But, I enjoyed Legion, but it was kind of a tough read. Like, it was not a page turner. Honestly, left me being like, once I was done with the chapter, I was kind of thankful, just because it did go on for a while. But it's still a very interesting book that I recommend to people who are either fans of the Exorcist 3 movie and are kind of like, what the fuck's up with that ending? This book, it pretty much makes you go, oh shit, so that's what's supposed to be going on. Fuck, that's crazy. Like, I'll say that up front. Like, read the book if you like the movie but are puzzled by the ending and are like, shouldn't this be somewhat different? Yes, it does. So that's it for Legion. I recommend it if you're a fan of the movie Exorcist 3 and want to expand on it, or if you're just a fan of detective or mysteries. It's worth a read. It's definitely worth a read. And time for the last one, Springfield Confidential. It is a non-fiction book written by one of the original writers on The Simpsons, Mike Reiss. It's like part biography, part talking about how they write the scripts and stuff, part joke book, part it's just part really good book, just how much goes into an episode of The Simpsons. And I'm gonna say it, this was a difficult book to put down. The stories are funny, and it just seems very, very personable from Mike Reiss. There's a lot of personal things of just like it never makes you go aw or anything like that. He's more of a funny guy than he is an emotional guy. But I gotta go with sometimes when he does say certain things, it does make me go, that's super relatable. If anything, it's relatable and funny, not emotionally, but just I don't know. I'm just gonna say it up front. If you are a Simpsons fan, read this book. It is amazingly well written. It's witty as a show. It's a definite must read. I know I just dropped my note card because I was like, I don't need it anymore. I literally just want to talk about it. Sorry, I had to pick up the book because I just wanted to open it up to I'm just gonna open up Springfield Confidential onto a random page and just maybe say something. Here we go. So this is there's actually, oh god, I just want to talk about it's a pretty decent little chapters in there. So the book is structured kind of like how a Simpsons episode is structured. You have the opening credits where he literally just answers a burning question what the book's about. Then there's the Act 1 where it's kind of random nonsense. And that's kind of how the first episode is. It kind of ties into the main plot, but it doesn't necessarily have to tie into the main plot. And I love how that's written. It gives you a brief history of him, and literally, it's the beginning is just early biography bits for him, and then Act 2 is literally the big chunk of the episode of a Simpsons episode, and this is the big chunk of the book. It's literally almost everything in the book is in this one and chapter legit more than 100 pages, 140 pages are dedicated to Act 2 in this one. And this one talks about the writers, the showrunners, the characters, the cast, and just how an episode is changed throughout, and just meeting the fans and stuff like that. It's really a joy to read. And then you have Act 3, which ties the whole thing together. Like a bow. And on this chapter, it's kind of a finishing up of his biography bit, and also talking about how doing, different writing stuff kind of changed him and how it brought him back to Simpsons once again. As the last chapter or the second to last chapter is chapter 18, back to the old tire fire. And it's just the little stories that are in here that are just really nice. One of my favorite stories is actually, I just gotta spoil one. I don't want to read too many things in here, but I want to read the John Swartzwelder one, because John Swartzwelder, if you're a fan of Simpsons, you know that he's kind of the quiet. He's J.D. Salinger of the Simpsons. He's very quiet. He doesn't really talk too much, but this is something that really caught my eye. Okay, so. Page 58 if you're a fan of if you have the book. But while John is mostly in
oh god, parentheses, normal. His writing is not. He's responsible for a huge number of truly crazy Simpsons episodes. Like the one where Bart gets an elephant. Or where Homer becomes a henchman for a Bond villain. Or where Marge... ... Well, he never really liked writing for Marge. And he'd often, quote-unquote, forget to put Lisa in scripts. I can say he might be sexist. But he seemed to be able to effortlessly channel Homer. His secret, he said, was to write Homer as a big dog. An example, in one episode, Homer is in prison. Fun fact. Oh, I'm not going to read the fun fact. Marge has baked him a cake with a file in it and delivers it to him. Homer wolfs it down, file and all. At this point, Schwartzwelder proposed that a long, pointy object begins to emerge in the back of Homer's pants. We asked him, with some concern, just to be clear, you're saying that while Homer is talking to Marge, he's slowly shitting in his pants? Schwartzwelder replied in his Gary Cooper-like cadence, yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Oh, that's one of my favorite ones. But there's a lot of really good little stories, talking about characters. One of my favorite little subchapters is how do we make the show? And it's literally, there is 23 steps from the pitch all the way to the airing of the show. And he goes not super in-depth, but gives little notes about each one. And there's about 1 million rewrites. I'm just going to say that up front. I was about to say, let's see, how many rewrites are in there? So you have the rewrite, the rewrite. You have yet another rewrite, so 3 so far. The animatic rewrite. Actually, there's 2 of these that don't count technically. The color rewrite, so that's 5. And yeah, you have 5 rewrites in one episode normally. That's just basic right there. And that's not even talking about everyone else's rewrites of the rewrite of the rewrite of the rewrite. There's a lot going into a Simpsons episode, and it kind of blows your mind for a second, of just how much goes into writing for a sitcom like The Simpsons. So, final thoughts on Springfield Confidential, because I don't want to spoil this one too much, because without a doubt, this is a fun book to read. Like I said, it's a page turner. I read this book in less than a week. I had a hard time putting it down. I read recreationally. I read during my breaks at work. And one time I was reading on my break, and I was like, I clocked back in, and I was like, shh, there's nothing going on. Can I still read? I kept reading. I know that's bad. I shouldn't do that, yada, 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 but I couldn't help myself. It's a page-turning not phenomenon, that doesn't make sense. It's a page-turner that'll make you go, woohoo! Or, eat my shorts. Or, ay, ay, ay. Or, or, I'll be in my room. Or, welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Rule of threes did not apply here. Should have stopped when I was ahead. I didn't learn anything from this book. No, that's not true. I learned plenty. I learned that I need more followers on Twitter. Thank you for joining me this week on Drunken Book Club, or Not So Drunken Book Club, or whatever you want to call this one. I'm your host, Christopher the Rupel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at _Rupel. And you'd probably want to prefer... I would honestly refer you more to the podcast's Twitter account at SOW_podcast. That's kind of become my new main account where I shitpost and kind of talk crap. Recently, this morning, I had a breakdown. I recorded this on a Friday. You'll find out, if you look at any of my tweets from a Friday, you'll find out where I had kind of a breakdown tweet. Yeah, I'm just furious at certain things that I see, and then people with so many fucking followers. And I'm just like, how do they have this many when they're just gushing, saying stupid shit like this? What the fuck? I post comedy gold and I get nothing. Why? Why? It's because of shit like this, Chris. It's because of this shit like this. Okay, but no, do follow that. And follow everyone else on the podcast. Follow Sam at Berserker Rose. Follow Weiss at Force Left Hander. That's Twitter and Instagram for Sam, and for Weiss, that's Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And follow Juan at Voice of JRod on Twitter and Instagram and on LinkedIn. And go to his website, voiceofjrovio.com. Not .net, .com. Not .org, not .gov, but .com. And hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you're subscribed to us on, whether you're listening to us on Spotify, you're listening to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Google Music, or Google Play, not Google Music. Make sure you're subscribed so you're up to date and listening to the newest episodes, because I feel like these have been some really bomb-ass episodes we've been doing in the past couple times. Stay tuned. I'm hoping next week we're going to do a quizzer. I'm thinking we're going to play some Hoopa Google Doodoo Noo. Kind of sad we didn't get to do the Valentine's Day one, but it's okay. We can add some Valentine's Day Hoopa Google Doodoo Noo fun in that one. Stay tuned. Stay relevant. Oh yeah, and follow us on Facebook too, I guess. I don't know. Oh, you know what? This is really important, people. I'm not begging for money, but if you want to help out the podcast, even just a little bit, go to patreon.com/speaking of which. It's just very important that you pitch in some money here and there. Even if it's $1. We only ask for a little bit of money just once a month, and it helps keep bringing out great content weekly. We do this for free weekly, you know? And it's just, and this money isn't going to go to me buying cheeseburgers or something stupid like that. I'm actually trying to quit eating mammals for just be a little matter factorily. But no, all the money goes to the podcast. Eventually I want to save up enough so I can get a mix board, microphones for everybody, including guests, and just, help with sound quality and other stuff. Give everybody headphones so we can be like, yeah, what up, foos, and stuff like that. But honestly, I feel like that's gonna have to wait until until we move out of this apartment, because this room's a little too small to be having mics for everybody. I'll just say that up front. This room is too small for that. Thank you for listening. Follow us and stuff. Hey, read a book. Read a motherfucking book. Not a magazine. I'm not going to say the rest. I can't. Happy Black History Month. Why did I say that? I didn't read anything Black History related. I didn't read anything with a black person in it. Legit, even the Simpsons one doesn't have any black people in it. Okay, like for guest stars maybe, but like, oh, Michael Jackson, the biggest fucking, he's the #1 black star ever. I need to read more books with like African American characters, or just black people in general. That's what I'm saying, not even African American. It could be people of Africa or whatever. I felt Jewish shame because I wasn't reading anything with Jewish people, and now I'm feeling black shame because I'm not reading anything with enough people of color. There we go. Thank you, people of color. But you know what? Mostly African American or black. I want to read more black fiction. Man, saying it like that makes it sound bad, doesn't it? But I do want to read more people of color's work. I need to read more stuff by women also. I feel like I'm not, like I'm kind of in a spot where I'm reading just the normal stuff, but I feel like I need to really reach out and start picking up books by women, books by Mexicans and Hispanics, books, or Latinos, thank you, Latinx. Books by black people, books by Asians, that aren't fucking mangas, Like, I feel like I need to broaden my horizons, but I need to first, like, literally shrink down my book corner over there and just find something new, I was about to say, like, I think within this time I've only read one book that wasn't by a white dude, I think. Like, I'm looking at my shelf and I'm like, yeah, that's Honky Central. Like, and I'm not counting comic books, because you know what? I feel like I've gotten pretty diverse on there. I try to be diverse on there. And it sucks because the next book I'm reading is it's by a white dude. Also, if you've stayed with me this long, all right, I'm just gonna give up the secret to what next month's Rubles Rupees are. The next 2 episodes are going to be based off of